Hi folks, and welcome to the Midnight McBride Show, episode 21 and 22. I've got a guy coming on now called Colin Unsworth. He's a mushroom, fungi and foraging expert. He has a foraging school. He teaches foraging. He also rides a 36-inch wheeled unicycle, which is going to arrive on tonight. And he's also a naturist and a nudist to boot. Really excited to get him in the studio and do this show. I'm outside because I'm going to film it arriving on his unicycle. Oh yes, Mr. Mushroom. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mr. Colin Unsworth, also known as Mr. Mushroom. Finally! Hey! Hello! There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Hello everybody and welcome. This is the Midnight McBride Show, show number 22. We've no clothes on. I'm back with Colin Unsworth, Mr. Mushroom, and there's a reason we're doing this is because part of this show we're going to talk about being a naturist. Colin's a naturist. We've only just really got into some of the stuff on the last show. There's a lot of the stuff that you're probably waiting for that we're going to get into on this show, which is to do with Mushroom Spotters UK, actually the foraging that Colin does, being a nudist, or naturist is the correct term, I think.
Yeah.
So, hello, let's do it. Okay. I don't know what I look like, but
it doesn't matter. That's the thing. It doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter. No.
So, Colin, we'll start with Mushroom Spotters UK. We touched on it briefly in the last show.
Yeah.
So, Mushroom Spotters UK.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a group you started with a few other people. Maybe tell us about it.
Yeah. So I didn't start the group.
Okay.
So what happened is I joined it very, very early on and became an admin of the group and kind of I've led it. I've led that group ever since. It started off so online and Facebook groups and all that. There's basically a group of people who were going out there who were frontline anti-fracking protesters,
right? Water
protectors.
Yeah. And they also had a big interest in mushrooms.
Yeah, they did. Just it's that thing of sort of being part of nature and foraging and something funky and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So there's quite a big interest in mushrooms and mushroom foraging amongst and wild food foraging in general. So what happens in that sort of scene is there's some real big fallouts. So people are very, very political and very, strong in their opinions, in their political opinions and their political standpoints and stuff. And they don't always see eye to eye. Just because the common ground is that everybody disagrees that fracking is the wrong thing to do, doesn't mean to say that they agree on all the rest of the politics. Yeah. And it can be quite ruthless. It can be quite a ruthless scene. So the idea was, let's just have a group where we'll just have two rules. So let's keep it let's keep it friendly and keep it on track with whatever the group topic was. What should we make the group topic about? Oh, let's do mushrooms. There was a couple of other mushroom groups out there for mushroom identification. I think I've seen
those as well. There's less people in those groups.
Well, there wasn't then. I mean, so there was 32 of us, and a good sort of 12,000 of the others in the other groups. So they were the big groups, and we were never going to compete with them. But that didn't matter because we were our own little sort of group of people just keeping it nice and keeping it friendly. And people come and join, and people keep joining, and it's grown and grown and grown, and we're now the biggest UK mushroom Facebook group, 35,000 members. It's a fantastic thing. It's grown.
I've only joined the group about a week ago, and there's lots of different posts, and I think a lot of people automatically assume they make assumptions about what the group's going to be. Yeah. And it's not. It includes everything.
It does include everything.
So everything.
It's been on a journey. It's taken us on a journey, and there's been a journey with it. So the very first initial thing was a few people giggling about psychoactive fungi.
Yes, of course.
So most of the big groups out there will not tolerate any discussion of psychoactive fungi, whereas we will tolerate that discussion. Yeah. And just basic things. I'd rather people do the right thing
It's
and
part
identify
of
it
it.
correctly.
Let's say there's 1,000 mushrooms out there and 4 of them are psychoactive.
Yeah.
You can't just say they don't exist.
Absolutely.
It's part of the equation.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you can be intelligent about what you talk about and careful. It doesn't mean you're encouraging people, but you're better to be informed, surely.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at all the, do you remember the Drugs Information Frank, that programme Frank?
Yeah.
And that was very much about giving the correct information out. None of this stuff that's like just scaremongering and fearmongering and all that sort of stuff. Let's give the right information out and help people to make the right choice in life.
I think their attitude was, if you're going to do it, at least do it safely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And back in the 80s, there was a bit of a phrase called the gateway drugs. And people thought that like some drugs would lead on to hard drugs, and so they call them gateway drugs in the tabloids and stuff like that. So my thing with the psychoactive fungi is people come into the group, people might join the group sort of because they want to identify some psychoactive fungi. After a week or so, you've been your Facebook's been bombarded with all these like really funky pictures and interesting things about fungi and its role in nature and stuff you can eat. And you go out and you look for stuff and you think, oh, hang on, that's one of them. I could put that in my pan and eat it, And so to me, it is a gateway drug. But it's a gateway to getting out there and foraging and making a connection with the world and making a real, proper human connection with nature,
There's two things. One is, I don't think anybody that takes a drug, even if it's not a good drug, is a criminal. No. Anybody that puts anything in your body, as far as I'm concerned, you're not a criminal, it's your body. It might be a really bad idea, but it's your body. You're not a criminal. You're not, in my mind, you're definitely not a criminal. No. Certainly, if you're taking plants that occur naturally in nature, you're definitely not a criminal. And for some of them to be illegal, I don't agree with it. But they are, and that's where we're up to. Yeah. But also, I went out on my first forage just 2 weeks ago with, again, my friend Ben Atkinson.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a great day out. We had a lot of fun. I learnt a lot about mushrooms. He taught me some really important lessons as well. We were picking mushrooms that were edible, but the head had fallen off those mushrooms, and I was grabbing the stem next to it, and he went, whoa, no. Yeah. He said, that stem didn't come from that mushroom for certain. And he said, with mushrooms, if you're not certain, you don't do it, you know. Yeah. And I had a great day. I got some edible mushrooms, various kinds, and I can't remember all the names now, probably 6 or 7 different kinds. And I loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It's fascinating.
Yeah,
it is fascinating.
And we did a skinny dip as well, and jumped in the plunge pools and everything else.
So it's like a good day out.
Yeah, I loved it.
So what happened in the group is it started off like that, and then a few food foragers came along, so the group evolved and we became more sort of dominant with the food foraging side of thing. And then photography, I remember we went through a real phase of photography, because one thing about fungi is that it's very photogenic. It makes the best subject, and a bit of fungus, bit of mold on the side of a log doesn't look much. As soon as you get your camera on it with the right angles and stuff, it looks like another world. It looks fascinating, So you kind of get that. And then as the group grew and grew and grew in size, we started to get very serious. People who were studying, people who were mycologists. Mycologists would join to just keep your eye out, because all these casual foragers out there are actually recording what's going on out there, so they can kind of keep tabs on what the seasons are doing and all that sort of stuff.
All of a sudden, you've got access to film or footage of mushrooms up and down the country, so you've got maybe a broader picture.
Yeah. I mean, there has been a case that social media and the advent of social media has ended up with, there's a few species that have been almost like recategorised from being like rare down to common, because they just weren't being recorded by the right mycologists at the time, but actually people are spotting them, so it's a good gatherer of information, it's a wealth of information, it's a good hive mind,
hive mind,
it is, it's absolutely is a hive mind. So you get a few of these plant identification apps on your phone, and there is a couple of mushroom ones, but I wouldn't trust them, because we've had people post screenshots where they've got it pointed at a death cap and it said porcini. You couldn't get two polar opposites from the foraging world, you know what I mean? It's, but if you want an identification, access to identification, the hive mind of these massive groups out there is just second to none.
When I went with Ben, he had a massive book that thick in a rucksack, and we took it with us, and he said it's the only way I can be sure, because even though he could identify probably 10 or 12 mushrooms straight away, there's always one that you're not sure about, But I've been out with Willow and picked some mushrooms, and I came back and I spent hours on the internet and I couldn't be certain what they were, and it's a shame.
It's really hard. It's really hard. It's confusing, and you're just about getting to the point where you're thinking, well, it must be this, and then happen to browse through a different section in the book and think, there's something in the other section here. That,
well, it's got a nipple, but it's got fins, but it's this, but it's that.
And for a learning process, so some people learn best by studying the books. Some people learn best by discussing it with people. There's different learning styles, isn't there?
Yeah.
For me, it worked, and absolutely worked for me. Was post a picture, get some discussion. People will give you suggestions. You then go to the books and look up in the books. And so you weren't sort of spending loads of time looking in wrong sections completely. You can kind of get a good idea of which section of the book to look in. Yeah. And before you know it, you've kind of learned something. And then the best bit, and from a teaching point of view, this is where your learning is really cemented in place, is you've just learned that. It's kind of with you, and it'll probably stay with you as a bit of a short-term memory thing. But as you're browsing through Facebook, you see somebody else asking a question about it, so you teach them. And that's what cements your learning. So it becomes a fantastic place for people to learn stuff, and really get knowledge, become knowledgeable about it. It amazes me the journey that the original core members have been on through the growth of this group. It's just amazing. Yeah.
So maybe tell us, Colin, about what you do during your week now, because you do day courses. Yeah. And you also take people out on forages.
Yes.
And when you're doing that, you identify mushrooms, you pick mushrooms with them, and you even eat them at the end.
We do a fry up at the end.
Yeah.
And that's when people want to make that connection with nature, you can go out and you can do some tree identification and some species identification and all that sort of stuff, and it's fantastic. You can talk about the role of the fungi in the forest and be blown away by its role and how it's responsible for life on Earth and everything. But as a human being, as a creature, and creatures, you've got some basic needs as a creature. If you can kind of go out into that habitat and identify things and pick them and put them in your basket and take it back, cook it and eat it, that connection is actually it's kind of on a biological level. Yeah. You really, really made that connection.
I love the idea of eating it at the end, because when we did the pre-show chat and you said about, and then we have a fry up at the end.
Yeah, there might be like, you might have 22 species in that pan. And it looks fantastic. It's such a pretty thing as a basket of mushrooms. It looks so pretty, and it is a fantastic thing. People sometimes get a bit worried. Should you be taking that much out of the woods? Are you not spoiling it? Are you not spoiling nature? As human beings, that's what we do. We go around destroying habitats. But you're not. You're just picking a bit of food. And so the mycelium lives in the log or in the ground, whatever type of fungi it is. And when you pick the mushroom, you're just picking the fruiting body. You're not picking the organism. The organism carries on to live. That carries. And there's not been many extensive studies about the damage, if any, is done by picking mushrooms. But the conclusion so far is that it doesn't do any damage. Yeah. So you can pick mushrooms and it's fine. The greatest threat to biodiversity out there in nature is habitat loss. And habitat loss, the number one contributor to habitat loss is mass farming to provide our food. So if you can go and forage something instead of going to the supermarket, you're not doing mass farming, are you? No. So it's got to be a good thing,
I think if you only take what you need, number one, and secondly, like you said, I've seen patches of mushrooms, somebody will go and clear them, and next year, they're back.
Oh, yeah, always.
And they're back. Yeah. So you clearly, like you said, the organism is still alive. Yeah. You're taking the fruit.
It's alive and strong.
Just like picking an orange from a tree.
There is an analogy that can be made, and that is that picking a mushroom is a bit like picking an apple off a tree in terms of you're not going to kill the tree by picking all its apples. People who are quite knowledgeable about fungi get a bit annoyed at that analogy sometimes because it's not strictly true and it doesn't strictly hold true if you look at this and that and the other. But as a general sort of principle is to just get your head around the very basics of it. Yeah, you ain't going to kill the apple tree by picking the apples. You're not going to kill the mycelium by picking the mushrooms. In terms of the spore dispersal, it's amazing how many spores it'll disperse in the first few hours of the cap opening. The fungi is quite good at choosing the conditions. So the rains come, it opens up the cap, the down pressure of all the rain droplets in the air creates an updraft, and the updraft lifts the spores into the air and they get carried off in the wind. So that's why a lot of species fruit most in the autumn, because that's when it rains. There is a bit of an understanding now, a bit of a theory that the summer fungi, so the big fungi like your big puffballs, your giant puffballs, your big parasol mushrooms, the spores that they drop are in the billions. The quantities are amazing, and that creates a dust in the environment, and that dust neutralises the water particles, causes the rain clouds and makes it rain. So there is a bit of a theory that actually, rather than the fungi waiting for the rain, is the fungi actually controlling the rain. And you're sort of thinking, oh God, so it's responsible for the greening of the earth, it's responsible for the weather conditions. Who's the dominant species of this planet?
Exactly. When you think like that, it really makes you you step back and look at things and think, whoa, hang on a minute, what are we doing?
We go for a forage and you start off by going, right, we've got some baskets, we've got some staffs, let's look for mushrooms. Yeah. And you finish by talking about like life on Earth, the origins of life, the weather systems, the whole kit caboodle.
Maybe tell me,
wow,
you told me in the pre-show chat about before there were certain fungi, trees would fall, and they didn't decay,
dissolve.
Or they didn't
dissolve, basically. So lignin, which is a substance that makes up the cell wall, each cell in a tree, in a piece of wood, and nothing else will break lignin down other than the fungi. Certain saprotrophic fungi. You get a few bacteria that will eat some of the sort of goodies. They'll kind of decay the tree to a certain extent, but the lignin won't be broken down. So back in prehistory, before the weather conditions that we know today existed, so the planet was a very hot ball of green stuff. The trees, like the jet streams weren't in existence then. The Gulf Stream wasn't running. All that sort of thing hadn't kicked off yet.
The atmosphere of the Earth was different.
It was very much different.
The gases was
different.
I read about argon and other gases that were prevalent then.
Yeah, and we're very oxygen rich. Too oxygen rich for us to survive now. And one of the reasons it was so oxygen rich was because obviously trees are a carbon capture, aren't they? So they talk about carbon capture. The rainforest is a carbon capture. It captures the carbon from the sun, but it's only temporary capture, because once you burn that timber or it decays, it's then released again. So it's a temporary carbon capture. That's why we need the rainforests the size that they should be. Back then, the trees were very, 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 very tall, very straight, sort of canopy at the top. They'd fall down and dissolve into a black sludge. And a lot of the forests had massive, massive pools of black sludge, which would be a threat to all the other life, because nothing can do anything with it. It's, is this going to cause a mass extinction? Well, what happens when life on Earth is threatened is a fungi evolves to help out the life. So the saprotrophic fungi then, from then on, breaks down all the lignin. Them black puddles got trapped, and that's what became the coal and oil.
Yeah.
Now, when you understand that, and you understand the difference in the environments between the early Earth and the later Earth and the Earth that we know, you kind of start to realise on an even greater level just why we should not be burning that stuff and releasing all that carbon again. It was trapped and it should have stayed trapped. It's quite scary that so much of it is getting released.
Maybe we'll talk about Colin, and we'll touch on this, but like you said with the group, that you do have some conversations about hallucinogenics and certain mushrooms and things like this. And I know I've talked about it on the show that I've taken them before. Yeah. But so golden teachers, liberty caps, things like this. Yeah. I know now it's for example the season for fly agaric, which is Amanita muscaria. Fly agaric. If you see one, it's quite unmistakable, but it's not.
It's the consummate mushroom. It's the consummate mushroom.
It's the fairy tale mushroom. It's massive, red, big white dots on it, and it's not like the others, the psilocybin, because it's poisonous. It's toxic, isn't it? There's certain things in it, and this mushroom is commonly, when you see it out, when I've seen it out anyway, a lot of people don't pick it for that very reason, because they're a little bit frightened of this mushroom. Yeah. And this mushroom, though, can be used. You can take out the toxins, and not from a hallucinogenic or psychotropic point of view, but there are other benefits from this mushroom, and it's an edible mushroom as well.
It is an edible mushroom if you deal with it right. So
that's the problem. I think a lot of people don't, and then people can become quite ill, can't they?
Yeah, its reputation isn't justified. Its reputation is to do with mycophobia. So as a society, the Western world, we tend to have this mycophobia.
I like that term.
Yeah, I really do. It's like people kind of think that you shouldn't even touch a mushroom because it could kill you by touching it. And that's rubbish. When you're identifying a timber, you get all the macroscopic identifications, the general shape, colours. Then you get the sort of details of like the gills and how close they are and stuff like that. And one of the identification features that can really help you hone down to what species it is the smell and the taste. So you nibble it, and sometimes it takes like a minute for that taste to come through.
Which is the one that's spicy, that looks like, you taste it and it's like a hot chilli, and it looks like a fly agaric.
Well, this is
Similar.
This is a family of mushrooms called the Rusula family.
That's it.
And I say Rusula, Rustler. The pronunciations. It's a dead language. It's Latin. It's dead, a dead language. But so I call them Ruslas. Red cap Rusula. So you get some red cap Ruslas that can go a bit bigger than normal, and you get little slug eating patches, so you get like the white showing through from the underneath. Yeah. So people mistake them for fly agaric ones. So that happens on the group every year. Is you get an argument over, is this a Rusula or is it a fly agaric? And it's dead easy to tell once you know. Yeah. But the Rusula family, there's a lot of them, and in order to narrow it down to the actual species, like the red cap Ruslas, there's about 110 of them that look pretty much identical. And what you need is, sometimes it's a microscope that you need, but actually with the Ruslas, what you can do is you can use a key. There's a guy called Geoffrey Kibbe who's wrote a lot of the identification books. He's a very knowledgeable guy, and he's a very, very nice guy. He's in the group. Right. So you can get
what's he called?
Geoffrey Kibbe. Geoffrey Kibbe. So you can get your identification book in front of you, and it's official. It's like the Mushroom Bible. Yeah. Go on to Mushroom Spotters and post your picture and your question, and actually get the book author helping you out with it.
Wow,
that was a fantastic thing. What a fantastic sort of thing to happen. Yeah. And he's produced this key. And you get this key, and you kind of get a few pots of little chemicals, and there's like ammonia and this and that and the other, and you put a little drip on the stem and see what colour it changes to. So you kind of record the colour changes, or no colour change, or whatever, the general colour, the shape, and all that sort of stuff, and you kind of look in the key, and the final thing would be to take a nibble. And the Ruslas, there's no poisonous ones, you see. So from a foraging point of view, if it nibbles and it's not acrid, then it's one for the pan. You can eat it. Yeah. The danger of that, people say, but what if you've really mixed it up and you've not got a Rusula family? What if you've got an Amanita and there's the death cap in there? Well, actually, I don't recommend anybody puts a death cap in their mouth. But if you did put a death cap in your mouth and have a little nibble, provided you spit it all out and you don't actually ingest any of the flesh, you're absolutely fine. Yeah. There's no need to do that, because there's other visual macroscopic details that identify it.
I didn't realise what was involved when you identify a mushroom.
Yeah.
Where did you find it? What time of year did you find it?
Yeah.
How big is it?
Yeah.
What is the shape of it?
Yeah.
What is the colour?
Yeah.
What are the features?
Yeah.
What about the fins and the underneath?
Yeah.
There's that many different.
There are.
For example, the Amanita muscara, the fly agaric, when it pops, it leaves the skin rim.
It does. The ring.
Yeah.
The actual spots on top are part of the universal veil. Let's call that. So it starts off as like an egg, and as it bursts out, bits of the veil of the egg stick to the cap, and that's what causes the spots.
The reason I brought, we're not, by the way, encouraging anybody to go and pick hallucinogenic mushrooms, but the reason I talk about fly agaric is when you were on Gardener's World. Yes, you were a guest, a featured. I know you said you're an enthusiast.
I had my clothes on then.
Yes, I know.
I don't think Gardener's World would have that, would they?
You don't like to call yourself an expert, but you were a featured enthusiast, if you like to call yourself that.
An amateur enthusiast.
Amateur enthusiast.
I'm happy with that title.
On Gardener's World, and you were in Rivington, and the mushrooms you went to look at was a spread of fly agarics, wasn't it? It was fly agaric.
Yeah. It was so lucky that they came on that day. I mean, they did come in the right season, but that was the best year for mushrooms.
I've never seen that many in one spot.
It was fantastic. It was absolutely fantastic. And there is something you can do with fly agarics, and that's you kind of slice them up, put them in a pan and boil them, simmer them for about 5 minutes, drain them and chuck the water, because that's the psychoactive and poisons and all that sort of stuff. So you chuck that away. Do it the same again, 5 minutes, chuck the water away. Do the same again, 5 minutes, chuck the water away. And you kind of think, what's left? Well, actually, they keep the shape, and they're all right. They're just quite wet. You then put them in a frying pan and fry them up dry, so you evaporate all the moisture off, and then chuck a bit of butter or oil in at the end and finish them off. And they're really tasty. Now, that's quite a process to go through, isn't it? So you'd sort of think, well, there's plenty of other edibles out there, why would I bother? Well, that year at Rivington, there were that many fly agarics that actually I might consider that a food source. And they're really tasty. And bizarrely, in some ways, it's one of the safer mushrooms, provided you do that process correctly. You're not going to misidentify it for something else, because they're so easy to identify, because it's a big red cap with the white spots and all that sort of stuff.
I've seen one, and it's the size of a dustbin lid. It's
huge. They can go huge.
Like the size of your hat.
Yeah, they can go huge. It's not necessarily easy to identify every single fly agaric, but when you get the sort of in their classic form and the red cap and all that, and they've got all the spots, you can't misidentify it. So it's a very safe species in some ways. So that's quite a fascinating thing that would surprise a lot of people, you know, that you can do that.
So, Colin, explain to us maybe about a spore print.
Okay.
Because that's something I haven't done, and I know that that's often a common way of identifying a mushroom. But you've sort of got to know what you're doing. It's to do with the colour and the pattern.
Yeah, basically the mushroom drops spores, and if you cut the stem off the cap and just lay the cap on a piece of paper, you could maybe even put a glass over that to stop any sort of drafts from blowing the spores away. It'll drop all the spores, and when you remove the mushroom, say 8 hours later, it leaves a pattern behind. It's like a shadow of the mushroom, and it's perfect. You see all the gill shapes and everything in it. It's quite a beautiful thing.
Right, I've not done that, so I'm going to try that.
It is a beautiful thing. And different,
that's quite distinctive then, is it? So you can identify a mushroom from that.
Well, you won't identify the mushroom, but what it does help you to do, I've not done it for ages, because once you kind of get a bit more knowledgeable, you don't need to do a spore print, because what you're doing with a spore print is you're just making sure it is of a certain family. You're not making sure it's a certain species within that family, but it's a certain family. So it's one of the identifications. It's one of the clues that
right.
You
so
can
just
be given.
Like the colour, the size.
Yeah. Some species, the colour makes a big difference, and you'll kind of say, well, it definitely is, or it definitely isn't because of the colour. But there's other species. At the moment, today we foraged some blushers, Amanita rubescens, and the colour of a blusher is so varied, but that's not the identification feature. For that, you identify it as an Amanita, like the fly agaric, because of the general Amanita features. But then you go down to some very fine things. So when you talked about the ring,
yes,
you get striations, little lines on top of the ring that I, with my middle-aged eyes, need a little magnifier to see. So I'll have a look at them just to make sure that it is that and not something else. You know. So there's the identification features are dependent on what the family is. So as a food forager for a roostler, it's simply does it taste okay? When you do the nibble and spit test, is it acrid or is it pleasant? That's all I need to know for a roostler, because I'm not a mycologist. I'm just looking for food, you know. Spore print, when you first start, can give you, so basically you go through your list of identification features, you look at the similar species and you think, those identification features are not actually ruling out the similar species, but the spore colour will. Right. So that's why you do the spore print. And some of them, there's different colour spores, and some of them are white, so you don't just put it on a piece of white paper. Get a piece of black and white paper together and put your mushroom half and half on the black and white, and then it'll pick up the different colours. And some colours, some are black spores, so you want white paper for the black spores, you know.
So we'll talk about the elephant in the room.
You mean the whistle?
Yes. Well, this is a gift. Whistle with my Midnight McBride burnt into it here, these are what you sell at festivals. Is that right? Yeah,
it's part of the sort of being having a bit of harmony with your habitat. When you go into the woods, you get hazel, and hazel naturally coppices. So you get when you get a coppice stool of a tree that's been coppiced, and you get all the trunks growing from it, and out of a stool of hazel, if you're lucky, you get what you call a sun seeker, and that's one that just goes straight up towards the sun, and you get a nice staff. So you get a walking staff out of that. You might get one that's a bit bigger and a bit longer, and that might become your roof pole. You know, so it's all that thing about using your habitat to facilitate your living. You know, whether it's food or stuff or whatever. And one of the things you can make is a whistle out of little hazel things.
I love the fact that I'm going to go home tonight and Willow will say, "You didn't do that show naked, did you?" And I'll go, No. I had a whistle and my glasses on.
Yeah, I've got a hat.
No, we're not actually
I was wearing
naked.
a hat.
If anybody thinks, by the way, that we've got shorts on under here, we've not. So, we're going to talk about being a naturist and also naked cycling, which is something else you do as well. You do that every year.
Yeah. So, apart from this year, but yeah.
How did it come about, or has it evolved? Have you always been a naturist?
I don't know. I mean,
but have you been to, for instance, if you go on a holiday, do you go to naturist campsites and things like this?
No. I have been to various places, but I've never been as a destination. It's just that I'm happy to be clothes free. It doesn't bother me in the slightest, and I'll do it anyway. I mean, I'll walk into a shop and I mean, I won't, because it's not acceptable. If it didn't offend people, if people weren't bothered about it, and it simply wasn't an issue, and the day's as hot as it is today, then I'll be at home doing my woodwork and I'll have no clothes on because I'm just kind of getting on with stuff at home. And if I need to nip to the shop, I've got to go through the rigmarole. Oh God, I've got to put clothes on, you know.
And I think a common misconception, if you're walking around with no clothes on, people may assume that you think, you know, look at himself, he loves himself. Now it's exactly the opposite.
It's nothing to do with that.
I've not got my clothes on. And it's not because I know exactly what I am, but I'm okay with that. That's all it is. It's about acceptance and just not being bothered, not giving a shit about what other people think.
And also it's kind of breaking away from the shackles that society puts on us in terms of our sort of feeling of, you know, shame to do with our bodies. We've got to cover up all the time. We're judged by our bodies. You know, I mean... You know, people are judged so much by the bodies. I mean, I always use Theresa May as an example. So, Prime Minister of the country... I don't
know where this is going, but
I know, So, Prime Minister of the country, she ran it in her way. Now, whether you like that or you dislike it in terms of how she ran it, is, you know, another show. I mean, just to make it clear, I totally disagree with every single one of her policies and things that she did. But one of the things that really annoyed me at the time that happened to her was she was judged for wearing a pair of really shitty leather pants that were unfashionable and awful.
And it's irrelevant.
It's completely irrelevant. Why should that be an issue? Judge her on her political leadership, because there was plenty to judge her by. Do you know what I mean? So why judge her on her clothes? And that's because she's a woman. Basically, because a bloke would have never been judged like that. And whether it's male or female, society places such great pressures on you so that we're always made to feel as though we're never quite good enough with our bodies. And it's going, two fingers to that, sod that, I'm not going down that route, I'm not having that. We're all good enough. And do you know what? Every single one of us is beautiful.
Bingo. We're programmed to think that a certain form, a certain weight, a certain physique is beautiful. And obviously you want to be healthy, and there is that aspect, but beyond that, everybody's perfect.
And there's beauty in everybody. So I kind of saw the naked bike ride. I saw some clips of the naked bike ride and somebody, and I was like, I need to do that. That's the best event that's ever been invented in the whole of the history of the human race.
Thousands of people all meeting up, and it's sort of a rally kind of thing.
So the general idea is a protest ride against sort of highlighting cyclist vulnerability, protest against oil dependency, but naked to get the attention, because it gets the message out there. So because of the size of the rides, a lot of people come on it who are activists for body freedom, you know, people who are naturists and want that sort of message going out there as well. And I agree with every single one of the messages that goes out on the naked bike ride, you know. It's just, and the atmosphere is fantastic. You ride through, so I do the Manchester one, you're riding through the streets of Manchester. There's about 500 riders in Manchester now. If you go to London, there's about 4,000 riders, and Brighton the same, you know. But Manchester, the first year I did it was 32 of us, so that took a bit of bottle.
I'm going to say you don't feel quite as secure and comfortable in a smaller group, do you? When there's a lot of you, it's not as bad.
I actually wore, I did wear something, but I wore a big pair of fairy wings and a see-through tutu, because I felt like I was covered, but I wasn't really. Do you know?
And you wanted to be a tutu wearing fairy.
Basically. So you ride around the streets, and it's a convoluted route around Manchester, and it's a Friday night, and it's in June, and hopefully it's sunny, and people are out drinking on the bars, and the reaction from the public is prize. You know, it's brilliant. It's, you know, everybody kind of goes, yay! You know, there's very few people who actually look offended by it. Everybody's cheering. Last
makes people smile.
It makes people. The last time I did it, there was one particular person on a street corner near Deansgate. As the ride went past, there was a woman stood there, and it was like she was just completely overcome by it all, and she was shaking, and she just went, "You're all beautiful," and I was like, I love it.
Right on. Yeah. Awesome.
You get it. You know, because people, you know, there is those still. I mean, I think society's got a lot more relaxed about naturism and people being naked, and, you know, so what's the big deal and all that. But it still exists that people have those old, quite horrible perceptions that it's, you know, if you're naked in public, you're a sexual predator. You know, that it's to do with sex, and you kind of go, well, you know, some naturists argue that it's nothing to do with sex, and I kind of think, well, there's not really much in life that you could probably, you know, properly put forward a full and thorough argument that it's nothing to do with sex. You know, the car you drive has got something to do with sex. The house you know, the job you do is, you know, if you're a Freudian psychologist, everything's got a sexual basis to it. You know, so you can't totally eliminate that sort of thing. But makes no difference whether you're clothed or naked. Do you know, that's the same sort of underlying basis to human existence, isn't it? Just because you're naked doesn't make it about that. It really doesn't,
and,
you know.
And sex is heavily involved in selling things and advertising.
Absolutely,
at the minute, I mean, you try and watch an advert that hasn't got some connotation.
Yes, social media, there's a big problem with social media at the moment because some of the big companies, Facebook, Twitter, all them sort of people, they have a no nudity policy, and it kind of sometimes it just beggars belief that some of the hatred they'll allow, but they won't allow a naked person, you know, somebody breastfeeding or something like that, you know, and that's you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I write in the book I have, the first book, From Pills to Peace, and I say that I remember as a child, and it was fine to see the A-team with AK-47s shooting everybody in sight, but you see a vagina on television, oh my God, terrible, part of the human body, you know, until after 9 o'clock, but 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you can see somebody firing a gun then.
And killing people.
A gun, or a handgun in particular, which is even worse, but a gun is designed, it only has one purpose.
Absolutely.
It has to kill.
Absolutely.
It's to kill. And a handgun has even a more specific purpose, to kill a human being. It's to kill a human. So it's that for me seems insane.
It is.
And we've been accustomed as children to just that's completely normal.
And in terms of marketing and advertising, social media's double standard on this is that they'll allow those lines to be blurred a little bit and have a little bit more nudity, something a bit more revealing, some sort of like this sort of swimming costumes that are just literally a string, if it's a model. But if an average, you know, member of the public does that, then they get their account closed.
I'm going to have to get rid of mine then.
But it's such a double standard, isn't it? You know, it really is such a double standard. And basically what it's saying is marketing's all right, but everything else isn't. You know, so, not good.
Crazy.
So the naked bike ride has been so that big unicycle I arrived on tonight.
Yes,
I've only bought that recently. That's a recent purchase. I've rode a unicycle before many times, but a small wheel unicycle, you kind of go in at walking speed, really. Is
it phallic? Is it how big is your wheel?
Yeah, it's bigger than yours. All that sort of stuff. No, so the idea of the big wheeled unicycle, they call them a touring unicycle, and because the big wheel means you can, with each revolution, you travel further, so you can go faster. So I can keep up with I can't keep up with the cyclist, but I can go at a reasonable pace. So I've bought that to do the naked bike ride on. Awesome. So that should be quite fun. That'll and it'll take some bottle as well, because you know when I'm on that big, it's a big wheel.
Fall.
No, I mean top of my head's about 8.5 foot in the air when I'm on that thing. You know what I mean? So, and
your testicles are about 5 or 6 foot. Because you sat down, not stood up. Well,
and it's. But I'm looking forward to that. That should be good fun.
Maybe I'll join you next time.
Go on the naked bike ride. Definitely, it's such a good communal thing.
Road racer.
It
seats like a razor blade on that.
It's a good sort of measure of society's foul attitudes towards nudity is what happens at the start of the naked bike ride. So you arrive at All Saints Park in Manchester. The ride starts at 6. You know, so you get there at 5:30 or whatever to see who's hanging around. There's nobody there. So the ride starts at 7, but people congregate from 6. From 6 o'clock onwards, people are congregating and ready. And basically, the men take the clothes off. So there's men walking around naked. You know, and members of the public walking past start doing a double take. There's all those naked people over there. And when I've been arriving at say 6:30, I'll hear people walking up and down the street, literally. Oh my God, there's loads of naked people over there. And then the next thing is, why are they all men? And they are. Every single one of them is men. And there's a few women knocking about, but they're not naked. And the reason for that, it's right at the last second, because stationed off the park in the distance with telephoto lenses are people waiting, and all they're interested in is getting a close-up on a female.
For newspapers and stuff, because it's usually well publicised, isn't it?
Not just for newspapers, but for people with telephoto lenses, it'll be to put on websites, on porn sites and stuff like that. You know, this is naked in public and all that sort of stuff. You know, it'll be, and the attitude towards that is absolutely foul, and they just want to get women on. It
also says women are beautiful and men aren't.
Well, I think it says that women are objectified. You know, that's what's going on, is women are totally objectified. So the women get naked literally at the last second and then get on the bikes and ride because they're off away from those cameras. And it's vile. It's vile that should be the case. That should be how the world has kind of come to view the human body. I mean, it's just a body. We've all got one. There's not that much difference between us all.
And they're all different.
Yeah,
know?
There's not that much difference between us all, but we're all unique and we're all individual. And you kind of turn up, and if you're on the naked bike ride and I've never seen you naked before, I kind of turn up and of course I look at you and I see you and I can see your balls and everything else, but spend about 2 seconds looking at that, and then I look at your face after that, because that's the thing I'm communicating with.
The funny thing is as well, in an advertisement, if there's this very slim, skinny model, whatever, there's only one woman in the world that actually looks like that. It's the woman in the advert. Yeah. Nobody else does.
No.
We're all different.
It basically sets everybody up to fail and to feel that they're not good enough.
I call them false idols.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Kids see something in the media or a magazine and then they strive to be like that. And then the fact is, those pictures are usually airbrushed anyway, and they're not even real.
Yeah.
And you're hardwired to failure when you're trying to be something that isn't real.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then what you do is you try and buy your way out of it, and that's where the marketing comes in.
Yeah.
So there is a funky angle to the naked stuff and mushrooms. So because I do the naked bike ride and I have my mushroom hat that you saw.
Yes.
I posted a picture from the back because my last outfit was the mushroom hat and a waistcoat and nothing else. So posted a picture from the back and I says, did the naked bike ride tonight. Pity I only managed to see the mushrooms on my hat, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then there's lots of conversation, lots of titillation, lots of jokes and lots of innuendos, and that's what happens even when we're being positive about it. It's got to be all innuendos and all that sort of stuff, which kind of get a bit tedious, but at least it's positive. And out of it came this idea. I says, just as a joke, I said we should do a naked forage. Anyway, so many people said they'd do it that it became a real thing. It's happening. We're going to do the naked forage. And we want to do a calendar. So, like a calendar girls sort of calendar, wicker baskets in the right place and a mushroom in the right place. The
top of the flying garrick or whatever,
and that is, I think that could be quite a funky thing, it really could.
Yeah. So, Colin, you're also a yurt maker. Yes. My friend Ben will be buzzing when he hears this. But that's obviously because of your background. Wood machinist and a joiner.
Yeah, and a joiner. And for the green woodworking, I've kind of teamed up over the last year or so with a guy called Glenn. He's a Boltoner and he's a green woodworker and a bodger, a master craftsman of the traditional sort of sense. In January, just before we had all this lockdown and all that sort of stuff, in January we had a green woodworking course which was paid for by the Woodland Trust, so it was a fantastic little venture. We got 8 people to come for, I think it was 8 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, can't remember now, but and we took them on a journey. So the journey is that we go into the woods and we look for an ash tree, and then we harvest that ash tree, we fell it, we look for the right ash tree, we then chop it up and we cut it up so it's axes and froes and big mallets and all that sort of stuff. Then onto the shave horse, and you shave it into your basic rounds. It then goes onto the pole lathe, which is the foot treadle operated lathe, so traditional pole lathe, and make sort of spindles, and we end up with, everybody's got a stool each, like a 3-legged stool.
Whoa.
And it's by sort of 3/4 of the way through the course, we've got a medieval production line running, because somebody's splitting the logs, so they're then chucking that to the axe, and the axe guy sort of chuck it down there. They chuck it to whoever's on the. You'll
have a union then, won't you?
Yeah. So it goes through all these stages, and we're churning out spindles to do these legs with, and so that's. So they were the first production lines basically, and it's a fantastic sort of thing because people kind of realise that this is stuff in our environment. It's stuff on our doorstep. We can make furniture from it. We can make whistles from it. We can make stuff from it. We can eat it. We're creatures of our habitat, and we forget that because we're such good habitat manipulators.
Or bad habitat manipulators, possibly. One of the final topics I wanted to talk to you about, Colin, is the fact that we're a bit of an activist to do with equal rights and against Clause 28. Maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Gay rights. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so typical values that a school kid at a mainstream comprehensive school from then was
a couple of your best mates were gay as well, weren't they?
Basically what happened is a couple of mates turned out to be gay.
I
was like, when I say best mates, I'd known them since we were 4, still known to this day. And all my other mates weren't, and they were a separate bunch of mates, and I just kind of it changed my life completely because I saw the issues and I saw them as a friend. I think when the issues are directed at you, you kind of get a bit defensive maybe. You might sort of get a bit introspective about it and look at yourself and think, is this all my fault? But when it happens to your friend, what you do is you get protective. And you go, oh, you sod off out of my mate's face, you get away from my friend, you know what I mean? And then and I started sort of just getting my head around it all. Like, one of the things was, so when Clause 28 came up, and that was going to be a big thing in law, I mean, that actually did more for gay rights than it did more good for gay rights than bad, because it was such a stupid measure that it unified the country into going, give over, we're not having that. These two friends, one of them had a boyfriend, and so the three of them, I was then going to, because I'd just passed my driving test, I had my dad's car, I was going to run them into Manchester so they could go on this protest. So they're going, are you coming with us? Come with us. I'm like, well, I can't, I'm not gay, I can't match for gay rights, I'm straight, So, and I felt a bit uncomfortable about it. I thought, well, people might think I'm gay, went to pick one of them up. His mum had recently got together with a new guy. The new guy was really struggling with his new partner's son's sexuality. He was like, not in my house, but the mother had given the ultimatum, don't make me choose over between you and my son, because I'll choose my son. So he was trying to come to terms with it.
He'd been in the bin.
I know, and I mean, he did get his head around it, and that was good. It was a process for him as well, so that's always a good thing. But my mate Ian, he gave me the Blood TV News. And this is a measure as to how far we've moved as a society, because you can't imagine this being printed now. This was, 88, something like that. In the editor's comments, which is the bit where they can be as bigoted as they want and give their opinions out, in the editor's comment, it says, we advise shoppers to avoid Manchester this weekend, as there will be an estimated 10,000 prancing perverts marching for gay rights. So that's the Blood TV News in the 80s. Right. I don't think it's even just Blood TV News, that's just society in the 80s, prancing perverts. And I read that and I went, right, I'm going. Exactly. I'm going. So, half an hour later, I'm marching down Deansgate with 10,000 prancing perverts shouting, we're here, we're queer, and we're not shopping. and that sent me on a route of wanting to believe in equality and champion equality. And when I used to teach in construction, I used to challenge racism daily, on a daily basis. And just in my life in general, it's always been a thing is we're equal, we should be equal. This sort of thing of like, well, it's so like people sort of think that equal rights means that somebody gets the job when they shouldn't have done, because they've got a different colour of skin or a different sexuality or a different gender or whatever. And they will argue that, well, it's just for the best person should get the job. Absolutely. That's why we have equality, and the best person gets the job. And what happens when the best person gets the job is we all get we're all better for it. We all benefit from that. So society benefits from it.
One of my sisters is gay. I've got male friends that are gay, female friends that are gay. I've written for Canal Street magazine. I've been on the Cud TV, a TV program, which is a gay TV program. And for me, the funny thing is, when you see everybody's equal, it's not even a thing. It's not a thing.
No, it's not a thing anymore.
It's irrelevant. What your sexuality is doesn't affect you as this shining light, this person, No. And I've had a couple of guests on the show that are gay, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, there is a drag queen called Marie that is supposed to be coming on this show hopefully in the next 7 to 10 days. So fingers crossed. She's just moved house, but I'm 100% on board and agree with everything you say. Absolutely. So Colin, tell us, if somebody wants to come and forage with you, if they want to, let me get this right. So if they want to go to Forest Horizon, which is that's your business, that's the foraging.
It is.
School.
I mean, first of all, I must point out that if they want to come foraging with me, they don't have to take the clothes off, because that would worry some people. That would worry some people, and I won't take mine off.
I think that's the one thing to hear, isn't it? They're not like, are you going to get naked if they go foraging?
Well, if you come on the naked forage, then no. But on the general forage, then no, that doesn't happen. No. So Forest Horizons. So Forest Horizons is my sort of business. Facebook page is the best place to find me. I do have a website as well, which is foresthorizon.co.uk. It's kind of out of date and needs updating.
Doesn't matter. Most people's are.
I'll tell you what you will do. We'll find though, if you go on foresthorizons.co.uk, is the first thing you'll see is my Gardener's Wool clip. So
I watched
which
it.
I'm very proud of.
I watched it with Willow, and you look cool as a cucumber. It was as if you were presenter all the time.
Yeah,
it was great. It was a long clip, 7 minutes or something.
Yeah, I mean, that took from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4:30 in the afternoon to film. We were filming all day. So there's the editing team is just superb.
I know. I did a bit of acting, and I was in Scott and Bailey and Peaky Blinders as well. And when I was in Peaky Blinders, we shot an entire day. Yeah. An entire day. Yeah. And the clip lasted about 30, 40 seconds. Yeah. A full day. Yeah. And dressed as a copper with a moustache and a truncheon and chasing people around and scrapping. Right. So I know how long it takes to get what they want.
To get those bits. But do you know what? I don't know why. I think it's because I was talking about mushrooms. So I can talk about mushrooms. I mean, we're going to stop talking soon, and I'll be like, well, we've not talked about mushrooms yet.
No, we've not actually finished. Really, we've not started.
No, absolutely. So basically, if you could talk about a subject, then it just kind of rolls.
It's this simple. If you follow what we call in Buddhism your Dharma, if you're following your heart, if you're passionate about what you do and you love it, you're not working, and you'll give out this positive energy to everybody. People will be drawn towards you, and because you love what you do, you'll become very good at it, and then success, depends how you judge success, but success is doing what you love and helping other people, and that's a guaranteed, that's a given.
It is. The Mushroom Spotters group, I've put so much time into that, and nobody pays me a penny. We don't earn anything from that.
You've lots of videos and clips everywhere, haven't you?
Yeah. But it's changed my life. Yeah. It's changed my life, both in terms of I'm actually making a career that's associated with it now, but the other one is just the community and the people, and it's fun we have a group of people who get together and meet and we go foraging, and it's like a day of mindfulness. It's such a wonderful thing, and we start off with the Hungarians bring little palinkas, so we can start with a couple of shots of palinka and test, forage this and forage that, and then we go off on our walk and we collect all the mushrooms and we chat about stuff. And
if you're not fully present, you're not going to find any mushrooms. You've got to get in that moment, haven't you? You've got to, that perfect perpetual rolling moment. That's what life is. It's being in the now.
Flow state into this. So psychologists call it flow state. When you're in a flow state moment, when you kind of you're consumed by that moment, and you're not sort of thinking about tomorrow's tea and stuff like that.
You've got to concentrate, haven't you? And you've got to listen. You've got to learn. You've got to smell, taste, use all your senses. Zen Buddhism, you use the 5 senses to bring yourself into the moment. Colin Unsworth, or AKA, and this is what I like to say, Mr. Mushroom. Mr. Mushroom. It's been, and I'm going to swear, I haven't sworn yet on this show, it's been an absolute fucking pleasure having you on this show. I've loved it.
Good stuff.
I am so happy you did this show.
So am I. I didn't know what to expect. I totally didn't know what to expect. No. I kind of did have a thought of, I love talking about mushrooms, and I think he's going to want to talk about me, and I don't want to talk about me, I want to talk about mushrooms.
Well,
but we've talked about mushrooms.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing, I know.
It's the same thing. Your life it's about mushrooms, isn't it? And it's interesting to see if you're passionate about something, why? Yeah. And it could be from the start where you were bullied and then you spent time in forests and woodlands and so on. But, seriously, it's been a fucking pleasure.
It's been a pleasure being here.
And I will put my clothes on
I know you've even ended up naked.
I know I actually want to, but I will put my clothes on later.
Do you know, that is a bizarre thing, isn't it, with Naturist and stuff? You get so comfortable that you don't actually want to get dressed again.
I've just done an hour show and 5 minutes in I forgot I was naked, but there we go. Colin, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, you know the script, you know where you can buy my boot, you can find me on the website, you can listen to me on the radio, you can find me on social media. This has been show number 22 and the Midnight McBride Show with Colin Unsworth, aka Mr. Mushroom. Shalom.
Can I talk to Joe now and again?
Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. Yeah.
Hey, Joe.
All right, Joe. Hey, we're gonna get naked in a bit, Joe.
No, Best place to come.
We might do that off camera before we come back on here. You'll have an heart attack. The problem is Joe's the only one that'll have he'll have full control over the wide angle camera, and you might get the odd flash, Joe. But
so just a whistle and a hat.
Joe, I don't know what to say. Right, I've got to get up and do the cameras. I might cover up for you then, Joe.
Okay.